Will went on. "We could not blind ourselves to the fact that you were not the type of man who would commit an ordinary crime under stress of temptation. But homicide is in a class by itself. You might have committed murder. Indeed, there was the strongest possible assumption that you had done so. You will observe that there was nothing miraculous in what we did. One step led to another in natural sequence. On the barge we got the letter that led to the tracing of Ivan at the gambling house in Smike Street. We knew your finances were cramped. We were, as opportunity offered, limiting your helpers so that we might force you to show yourself. That is what happened. You went to Sir Ralph Fairfield and succeeded in dodging our men, so far. It was Fairfield's servant who gave you away. He came to Scotland Yard and in my absence was taken away by Sir Ralph. When I returned, I arranged to get Sir Ralph out of his chambers for a time, sufficient to allow me a talk with his servant. I then bluffed some idea of your mission out of Sir Ralph. I found you had been refused money. You had already applied once to Lady Eileen Meredith for money. There seemed a chance that in your desperate state you might do so again. I went to Berkeley Square. Lady Eileen had gone out. I got into her sitting room on pretext of waiting for her. On the fire were fragments of a note from you, and I was able to make clear several words. That made me determined to examine her desk. I found a cheque-book, but the used counterfoils were not in her handwriting, nor did the amounts and the people to whom they were payable seem those that would be found in a personal cheque-book of hers. I searched the blotting-pad and was able to make out the words Burley and £200. The assumption I drew from that was startling enough, but it was still more startling to discover on the blotting-pad a fingerprint which, as far as my recollection went, corresponded with those on the dagger. Up to that moment, the possibility that Lady Eileen might be the guilty person had not occurred to me, but now a rearrangement of the circumstances, apart from the fingerprint, began to throw a new light on the matter. It would explain much if you, Mr. Grell, were shielding Lady Eileen. I could think of no motive, however, and resolved to hold the matter over for the time being. Even if I had good cause for my suspicion, it was still essential to find you. You obviously held the key to the mystery. We found out that you had met Lady Eileen and driven to Kingston, not by shadowing, for our man failed there, but by getting hold of the cabman who drove you. With the aid of the provincial police, we were able to trace you to Dalehurst Grange. I feared that you might be on the alert for any step taken by Mr. Green, and so acted by myself in getting into the house. Your manner, when I confronted you, impressed me favourably. It was not that of a guilty man. But I could not let an opinion bias me, for, in spite of everything, you might still have been guilty. There was a great possibility that you were an accessory. One thing struck me. Your walk was uncommonly like that of Harry Goldenberg. Now, people may be uncommonly like each other in face and figure and be unrelated, but I have noticed often that little peculiarities of gait run through a family. I had thought you might be a relative of Goldenberg's, but not till that moment did I become certain of it. You will remember that I put some questions that might have seemed offensive. I wanted you to lose your temper. It was conceivable that you might blurt out something. I found it very difficult to place Petrovska. While you were asleep, I thought the matter over and formed a hypothesis. I put several questions to you later and found that a woman had visited your house with Goldenberg. That was Lola Petrovska. Now, if she was not the veiled woman who came later, who was? For the sake of my theory, I put her as Lady Eileen. Very well. Lola and Goldenberg had visited you together, but she had assisted you since the murder, and she was hardly likely to do that if she was on friendly terms with the blackmailer and knew you had killed him. So it came to my mind that you might have used her in an attempt to get the compromising letters, and then it occurred as a remote possibility that she might, after all, be the guilty person, but to assume that, it was necessary to explain away the fingerprints, for they were not hers. All this led to the supposition that the dagger had been handled by someone after the crime. That person must have been Lady Eileen, therefore she must have been the veiled woman, you see? But this was supposition, which a single fresh fact would destroy. I held on to you, and Lola walked into our trap. An interview with Ivan cleared up some of the vague points in the story and confirmed my theory. You will understand that I was ready to drop it the moment it failed to fit the facts. Indeed, to make assurance more sure, I sent a story out to the papers, which I felt sure would convey to Lady Eileen Meredith that you were in great peril, and which, if she was guilty, might induce her to confess to save you. It had an effect rather different to that which I intended. Your clumsy attempts to take the guilt on yourself made me more sure than ever of your innocence. This morning we laid a trap for Lola. She was suddenly aroused out of her sleep, and I surprised her into what amounted to an admission of guilt. Grell rose from his chair with extended hand. "I rather believe that I have made a fool of myself," he said. "You have done a great deal more than you adopt credit for. I cannot thank you now, but later. I suppose I am at liberty now? I must see Lady Eileen at once." "You will have to give evidence at the inquest," said Thornton. "That is all. The step this woman has taken will save us all a great deal of trouble. Of course, what Mr. Foyle has told you is entirely confidential." "Of course." "Lady Eileen is here if you would care to see her now," said Foyle. "Will you come with me?" Grell followed the superintendent along the corridor. At the door of his own room, Heldon Foyle stopped and knocked. "Here you are," he said. Robert Grell opened the door. End of chapter 56. And end of The Grell Mystery by Frank Froust.